How does a former offensive lineman from a small junior college become the best play caller, teacher, and most innovative offensive mind in the NFL? And not only that, but Andy Reid has also built a dynasty in Kansas City and developed potentially the greatest quarterback the league has ever seen. It's easy to forget the state of the Kansas City Chiefs when Andy Reid arrived in 2013. Rooted at the bottom of the AFC West in 2012, the 2-14 Kansas City Chiefs were desperate for a major change, and the man they brought in to fix it ultimately changed the course of the franchise forever. So, how exactly did Andy Reid take the Kansas City Chiefs from a bottom feeder to a multi-time Super Bowl champion? It all started back on March 19, 1958. Andy Reid was born to Walter and Elizabeth Reid, who had originally lived in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, before moving out to the California West Coast. Walter Reid was a World War II Navy veteran who ran a tight ship, instilling discipline in his boys from a young age. In his teenage years, little Andy sailed with the California Maritime Academy, but in between other commitments, he found a real passion for football. He quickly outgrew other students of his age, but without any offers from D1 programs, he featured at Glendale Community College close to home. He was a versatile offensive lineman, playing guard and tackle. He was also a kicker for the program. He earned all-conference second-team honors in 1977 and has since been inducted into the Glendale Junior College Hall of Fame in 2003. Having finally caught the attention of programs around the country, Reid transferred to BYU to play offensive tackle. It was there that he found a passion for coaching. The head coach at the time, Lavelle Edwards, wanted Andy Reid to stay on as an assistant coach when he graduated. That same year, the program hired Coach Mike Holmgren as the quarterback's coach, a talented football mind who would eventually be the man to give Reid his first role in the NFL. Coaching guided Andy Reid back to the West Coast, taking the job as the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach at San Francisco State under head coach Vic Rowan. While commanding the unit, San Francisco State led the country in passing yards and total offense, despite being an underwhelming team overall. He worked closely with Dirk Koetter, who he'd go on to work with at UTEP. He followed the same coaching staff to Missouri, and in 1992 got the call from the NFL. Mike Holmgren had just been hired as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and he was building a staff. Reid took the job as the team's quarterback's coach, starting what would become a Hall of Fame career, learning crucial lessons that would eventually guide him to Patrick Mahomes and a Super Bowl winning dynasty. Mike Holmgren taught Andy Reid a ton about developing quarterbacks. Holmgren earned his first head coaching job in Green Bay because of the job he'd done as the quarterback's coach himself with the San Francisco 49ers under Bill Walsh. Joe Montana won the league MVP twice while Holmgren held that role, while also winning 2 Super Bowls as a part of the staff. Then, in Green Bay, Holmgren and Reid would go to work together on developing another Hall of Fame quarterback. Holmgren and Reid developed Brett Favre from an Atlanta Falcons castaway to a Super Bowl champion, winning a ring with the Packers in the 1996-97 season. Andy Reid followed the exact same path as his mentor in Holmgren, earning the job as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles in 1999 for the job he'd done in developing and winning it all with Brett Favre, just as Holmgren had done in San Francisco with Montana. When he was interviewed in Philly, Andy Reid took a 6-inch binder full of notes on how to build the winning culture, firmly believing that he was the guy to turn the fortunes of the franchise. When he got to Philly, the Eagles were headed in the wrong direction. They missed the playoffs 2 seasons in a row, with the 3-13 record in 1998 being the final straw for former Coach of the Year Ray Rhodes. Reid's first season in charge might not have looked like much in the win-loss column, but his elite eye for quarterback talent was about to turn the tide. One of his very first decisions as a first-time head coach was to draft dual-threat quarterback Donovan McNabb out of Syracuse. The pick got a lot of heat, too, with Philly passing on generational running back Ricky Williams in order to draft a QB. Fans booed, the media went into a frenzy, but Andy Reid had a plan. Just as he did when he arrived in Kansas City, Reid had a plan. He was about to build a winning franchise. McNabb only started 6 games as a rookie, with Reid showing patience before allowing him to play. Sound familiar? In year 2, the young quarterback was handed the keys. Under the strict coaching of Reid, the franchise went 11-5 and were headed straight back to the playoffs. Over the course of 4 seasons, the first 4 with Donovan McNabb at quarterback, Reid and the Eagles won 46 regular season games, reclaimed the NFC East, and went on to win 5 playoff games. They featured in the NFC Championship game 3 times in a row between the 2001 and 2003 seasons, with Reid winning the NFL Coach of the Year in 2002, but couldn't get over the hump to reach the Super Bowl until 2004. The momentum that Eagles team had was astounding. They were one of the most consistent challengers in the NFC, and in the 2004 season playoffs, they finally got their shot. Andy Reid would meet Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 39, but he came up short. While Philadelphia made it back to the playoffs several more times in the years that followed, 2004-05 turned out to be the only chance Reid got to coach a Super Bowl, at least until he arrived in Kansas City. The 2013 Chiefs needed a spark, just as the Eagles had done in 1999. They'd just gone 2-14 under Romeo Crennel, and with Reid not being offered a contract extension in Philly that same season, the two were a perfect match. Under the guidance of Mike Holmgren and Dirk Koetter, Andy Reid learned tremendously valuable lessons in building a winning culture. By the time he arrived with the Chiefs, he had a glowing reputation for dragging a franchise out of the mud and instilling that culture. There were always very few coaches around that had such a focused eye on finding a great quarterback, something Reid had done almost flawlessly in his time as a coach in the NFL. Even when Donovan McNabb departed from the Eagles, Reid played an instrumental role in the resurgence of Michael Vick in the NFL. Vick had been out of the league since he was released by the Falcons, serving time behind bars for his crimes before he attempted to make a comeback. It was Andy Reid who gave him a chance, and Vick won the NFL Comeback Player of the Year in 2010 while quarterbacking the Eagles. Reid won more games, 130, than any coach in franchise history during his 14 seasons with the Eagles. He was already considered a tremendous head coach, and the rumor is that teams were queuing up to offer him a job when he left Philadelphia. When he touched down in Kansas City, Matt Cassell was the team's starting quarterback. Reid changed that immediately, trading for Alex Smith, who'd been with the San Francisco 49ers since 2005. The former number 1 overall pick had re-signed with the 49ers in 2012. 1 year later, he was dealt to Andy Reid and the Chiefs and announced as the starting quarterback. Just as he had done in Philly, Reid turned the Chiefs around, but only this time he did it much quicker, fine-tuning his process from what he learned in Philadelphia. In his very first season in charge, the Chiefs went from 2-14 to 11-5, reaching the playoffs. Since that season, Andy Reid has never had a losing record with the Chiefs and has made the playoffs in all but one season. For 5 years, Reid and Alex Smith won a lot of football games, winning 2 playoff matchups along the way, but the divisional round of the playoffs had been their peak. And that's when Andy Reid and his staff made the call that altered the path of the Kansas City Chiefs forever and started a dynasty. Reid had already made several incredible moves since taking over the team. He drafted a controversial tight end by the name of Travis Kelce, as well as offensive tackle Eric Fisher and cornerback Marcus Peters, who won the Rookie Defensive Player of the Year in 2015. And in the 2016 NFL Draft, Reid and John Dorsey made an extremely controversial decision to draft a young running back receiver that no other team dared to touch. Tyreek Hill had a pretty dark past, having been arrested for domestic violence during his collegiate years. He pleaded guilty, was promptly kicked out of Oklahoma State, and had tried to rebuild his reputation at a Division II program, West Alabama. When the Chiefs drafted him in the 5th round of the 2016 NFL Draft, the city was genuinely concerned. Coach Reid and General Manager John Dorsey had to sit at the podium and actively defend their decision to draft Tyreek, stating they had done more than the necessary due diligence and believed Hill deserved a second chance. While opinions on his personal life are pretty heavily divided even today, there's no doubting that drafting Tyreek Hill, who hadn't done anything remarkable in college even before his guilty plea, played a major role in the dynasty the Kansas City Chiefs became. The pieces were all there. They had first-round talent on the offensive line, a top young tight end emerging, and a speedy receiver who had taken the NFL by storm right out of the gate. But Andy Reid had a gut feeling that Alex Smith wasn't going to be able to do enough to get them over the top. They needed to elevate a quarterback, and together with Brett Veach as the new up-and-coming general manager, they made a call to trade up and select Patrick Mahomes out of Texas Tech. The Chiefs called the Buffalo Bills from all the way down at pick 27, trading up to pick 10 to get their guy. Mahomes had been known as a raw, explosive gunslinger at Texas Tech, but he was being overlooked by the rest of the league because of the system and school he played with. Mitch Trubisky went number 2 to the Bears, and Mahomes slipped to the 10th spot right for the Chiefs' taking. That phone call to Buffalo on that day in April 2017 is the single most important phone call to the recent history of the NFL. Mahomes may have been a good NFL quarterback, but pairing him with Andy Reid, who had perhaps the strongest track record of developing quarterbacks of any head coach in the league, made it the perfect duo. Andy Reid worked with Favre, McNabb, Mike Vick, Alex Smith, and now he'd get a shot to develop his own quarterback once again, just as he had when he took McNabb second overall in Philly. Those two made a Super Bowl together, but they never won one. With Mahomes, Andy Reid was going to win. Alex Smith still played the year that Mahomes arrived, with the rookie only featuring in one game his first season. They went 10-6 that year and made the playoffs again too, but got knocked out in the wild card round by the Tennessee Titans. That was the moment Reid opted for the change. Alex Smith was promptly traded to Washington, and with just one start under his belt, Reid put all of his faith in Patrick Mahomes. Coaches' jobs often live and die by the decisions they make with quarterbacks, especially in drafting rookies. Get it wrong, and you likely find yourself out of a job, and it's far easier to get it wrong than it is to get it right. But there's getting it right, and then there's developing a two-time MVP who won the franchise 3 Super Bowls in his first 6 seasons in the NFL. Mahomes' list of accolades already read like that of a first-ballot Hall of Famer, and he could easily play another decade before he hangs it up for good. As for Andy Reid, he's an icon in Kansas City now, and he'll be a first-ballot Hall of Fame coach when he decides it's time to retire. From Hawaiian shirts to his love for cheeseburgers, everybody loves Coach Reid. The players, the fans, and his peers. One of the greatest rebuilding coaches in history with a near-perfect resume. There would be no Chiefs dynasty without him. What are your favorite Andy Reid moments? Share them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, you'll want to catch some of our other videos on our channel.